Hello, this is Oscar Pareja, and this is a special day. I want to congratulate my good friend Buzz and all the people from Third Degree. Buzz, thanks for all the connection that you have done with the people and soccer. And your 200 episode, send you a big hug and all the best.
Yeah. Woo. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer90.com. Shop Soccer90.com for all your FC Dallas, U.S. men's national team, European gear. They've got it all. Check out all the new FC Dallas stuff. Heavy Dallas burn flavor. You got to love it. 20% off. Use code Third Degree at checkout. Some exclusions apply. You never know who you're going to hear from on Third Degree, the podcast, like maybe Dan Hunt.
Hey, Third Degree, I want to give you a quick shout out for your 200th episode. What an awesome accomplishment. And thanks so much for telling the story of soccer, not just in Dallas with FC Dallas, but across MLS and across the globe. So keep doing what you're doing, and I'm looking forward to the next 200.
Hey, thanks, Dan Hunt.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to, yes, drum roll. Let's see, fanfare, applause, horns, party hats galore. It is episode 200 of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi, it's me, Peter, and partying along with me, first off, the man with the greatest beard in North Texas, Dan Crooke. Howdy, Dan.
Hello. Happy 200th.
Yeah, happy 200th to you too, my friend. And of course, the real person we should be celebrating, it is your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, editor, founder of Third Degree and this podcast and the .net, Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hi, Peter. I cannot believe, actually, that we made it to 200. I wasn't sure when we started this thing that we would all get here, but it's exciting to be here. Hopefully this is just the beginning.
We're very thankful for the 37 people that listen to the podcast each week, aren't we?
Well, it's more than that, but yeah.
Oh, it is? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, very good. Well,
It's
congratulations. 38. Congratulations to you both. We made it to episode number 200. That's a big deal.
And Buzz, a good friend on Discord, Mo, has purchased us a bottle of nice bourbon to toast that. That is sitting in my kitchen right now. The next time that we see each other, we will have to have a toast.
Yeah, for sure.
Is it bacon flavored again?
It's not, and it didn't come warm in a mason jar either.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. All right.
That was my delivery in a mason jar. I had to figure out how to split it up, Dan, and the mason jar seemed appropriate last time.
Maybe Buzz sent you hooch.
No, it was
definitely a bacon flavoring.
Yeah.
Bacon flavored hooch. All right. Very good. Well, I'm glad they were all in a really, really good mood, but not to be the proverbial buzzkill. But holy crap, Buzzard. I got to say, that was one of the most concerning starts to an FC Dallas season I can remember in a very long time, as Dallas loses to a torn up and not complete Minnesota 1-0 at home.
Yeah, sometimes as I tweeted, I think maybe like 30 to 40 minutes into the game, sometimes I hate being right. And it's not just me. All of us on this podcast talked a lot about some of the issues that were clear as day in this game. The biggest of which is if you kind of stand pat, you're going to get passed by. Some of the things that we were seeing in the limited amount of preseason game we got sort of made us a little nervous about some things, and those things rear their head. On the other hand, it is just one game. It is a season opener. It's not the end of the world, but definitely not the start you would want. Definitely, Minnesota has always caused Dallas problems with their mid to low block that they play. They love to stymie the middle of the field. It's amazing more teams don't try and do this to Dallas. There are some that do other than Minnesota. It's really effective. It's against this club in particular, just like we see it against the U.S. national team, because we're playing the same system. Both those teams do. So it's not surprising that it's a bit a stymie for the Dallas system. But certainly confirming all the concerns we had, and we'll probably talk about a lot of them, and definitely not what we sort of had hoped would happen, but probably what we all should have known was going to happen.
Yeah, Dan, I think we can all get stuck on the agreement that Dallas really sucks at playing against teams that play this way, and it's concerning that we're here another season into this and they don't look to be any better at it. But really, frankly, for me, and I'm interested in your perspective since you were actually at the game, I was shocked at just how bad all the players were individually. I mean, I don't know if you guys will agree, but the only player I thought that even had vaguely a good game was Paxton. And again, he got substituted for reasons I'm not sure. And everybody else just, man, they were really not sharp. They didn't look ready to go. And it was not a good performance, was it?
No, I would say the only other one that you could say was not bad was Marco Farfan. Your bright spot of the entire game, it felt like, was Giovanni Jesus for 20 minutes. That's how kind of dire things were.
Does this have anything to do with Nico's, the thing that we kept getting shoved back at us in the B-roll from the club, which is the videotape that I saw used multiple times where Nico's saying talking about complacency. Is that why suddenly now complacency is something he's talking about publicly, Buzz? Because he thinks they're being complacent?
Oh, it's certainly something you have to battle. When you have a good season, a lot of the players expect there to be another good season again, and you can't just expect that to happen. You have to make it happen. So I imagine the first season, we talked a lot. He talked a lot about the process. They talked a lot about trying to find. You remember the preseason press conference? There was a lot of talk about moves are going to be about guys that fit the system. So now he's on to the next level, which is getting guys locked in. And not willing to just sort of accept things as they come. A lot of the things that were problems in this game, I think you rightly say, come from that idea of just like that it would just be fine. I think there's something to be said for the amount of tinkering of groups and combos and even tactics that we saw in the spring. Granted, some of that will be alleviated by the fact that everybody makes the playoffs now. But so maybe there isn't quite the imperative as there might have been to start the season gangbusters. But at the same time, I think you could see a combination of guys that were slightly limited by a couple of preseason knocks, and then other guys that maybe just thought, oh, we'll pick up right where we were. When you do have one or two, not a lot of differences, but one or two is enough sometimes to make things kind of go a little wonky, and that clearly has happened.
So I don't know where to go with this. Minnesota's not. Can we all agree that was a miserably not entertaining game in any way, shape, or form?
Well, yeah, Minnesota missing Reynoso is not good, and so like the fact that you lost to them, even though you had more of the play by a considerable margin and more of the chances, I think the club rolled out the whole XG thing at the end of the game.
Oh, they certainly did.
Yeah,
that was the benefit, the pro that Nico was talking about afterwards.
Yeah, sometimes there's technically winning the XG, and then there's like, come on, that's not real. It ended up officially being 1 of 11 shots on goal. Well, number one, 11 shots on goal is not enough for a home game. So pure chance creation wasn't there. And then 1 on target of 11. This is a club. We talk about it all the time. High percentage finishing. They need 50% on target. 1 of 11 isn't going to get it done. So, back to front, whether it be your center backs that had the ball stuck under their feet and couldn't move it fast enough, whether it be your holding mid who wasn't showing enough and playing too static and just passing sideways all day. Now, again, Minnesota clogs the middle, so it may be that passing sideways was the only available play. But they weren't having a lot of joy going around the outside either. The chances they got came around the outside, mostly on the right. I think they were 51% of the play down the right. I mean, it was so lopsided. It just all across the board, disconnected and not flowing. Our mental memory says that coming off the back of last season, things look like this. And then 3 months later of not playing, why should we have expected it to be like it was 3 months later, right? It should be disconnected. That's okay, but definitely have to recognize that it is disconnected and it's not flowing and it's not working as we saw in that game. Now, the only real problem is if there's no progression. If they take what they clearly saw as problems, they work on it and they get better, then we're okay. But that's why one game's not the end of the world. But you definitely can't watch that game and think to yourself, oh, no, it's fine. No, it's definitely not fine. It's not the end of the world, but it's not fine either.
Buzz, Jeff Cassar here. Just want to say congratulations on your 200th episode of your podcast. You're an OG from Dallas Burn to FC Dallas, and you've covered the team so well. And just want to say congratulations on all your success, and let's go FC Dallas.
Well, obviously one of the things that we talked a lot about in the weeks leading up to the season was the loss of Matt Hedges and whether or not that's going to turn out to be a good or bad decision on the club's part. Replacing him with Ibby is a question we all wondered how that was going to turn out, and boy, that guy left a lot to be desired, Buzz. Very disconcerting. And I guess the general question I have is, can anybody look at themselves in the mirror and go, yeah, this team's actually better than it was last season?
Well, to answer the first part of that question is like, look, this is one of those things that we talked about all winter, right? I'm not trying to trash the guy, but when you're talking about a dude that only once in his career has played more than 12 games in MLS, the dude was his backup. He's a career journeyman MLS backup. I watched a player play that to me is a career journeyman backup, right? If you have to use him, okay, but it's not the thing that's going to take you to the cup, in my opinion, that kind of play. He did it for LAFC, but he didn't start 30 games, and they got a lot of other really good players. So, right. That's, you got what you paid for. Budget, money talks.
Was he
right?
on the
paid.
NYCFC team that won MLS Cup, or was he prior to that?
Traded just before the playoffs that year.
Okay, all right. I wonder if
he was on two winning teams. Yeah,
I wonder if he got a ring for that season.
He should, based on percentage of play.
Yeah,
it depends on whether they do one of those vote shares or things or not or whatever. I don't know how New York set things up, but the bottom line is the guys. You can look at the salary on the MLSPA and it tells you the caliber player he is. Right, he's not $1 million center back. He's a $300,000 center back. It is what it is. Good guy, good locker room guy, a guy that can start some games when you need to. Not the underpinnings of a championship team, in my opinion. So when you watch that game, you can see the aging triangle of Martinez, Facundo, and him, all 30 plus, all moving the ball too slowly, not keeping the pace up. Whether what a person thinks he should start or not might depend on what you think of Nkosi. I would have started Nkosi last game. I would start Nkosi next game. We'll find out if Ibiaga gets it again. But then, there's a discussion to be had about Facundo and Edwin Cerrillo too. So
I think as well, you look at Ibiaga, new to the team, doesn't have the world of like MLS match play experience. And you're asking him, and this is probably one of the things that was so underrated in Matt Hedges' game, you're effectively asking him to play two positions because Emertu Marcy just should not have been on the field at all. It was funny, the first thing I saw, when Giovanni Jesus came on, Ibiaga tucks inside nearly 10 yards. That's how far he was out of position trying to cover that trying to cover for Emma standing around in the midfield most of the day.
I want to say something about Emma because I thought when I saw him on Tuesday the week before that he looked labored and stiff in training. And I also thought that of Sebastian Lletget. Now, both those guys had multiple knocks in spring training and didn't play all that many spring training games. Yet coach went with them. I specifically asked about Sebastian today in training because he still looks stiff to me. And coach said, we're trying to push him back towards more volume minutes coming off of those knocks. So again, I'm not there's a certain amount of willingness by the coach in this game to play guys that were his guys last season and trying to push them back to full health and back to 100% in game. So they clearly chose to do that. Now, if this is late in the season, would you have made that same choice? I don't know. He might not have, but both of those guys, like people talked about, wow, where's Lletget? He's vanished out of this game. Yeah, he was limited mobility. And I still looked like it was so bad in training today. I actually was like, why does Sebastian Lletget look like he can't run? And he can run. I'm being exaggerating for effect, but both he and Emma, I thought were like questionable at best, to be in there, and you could watch him play and looked like not sure that was the right call.
Yeah, I did wonder if part of the reason why he chose to start Tuamase was because he didn't want to throw two new players on the field next to each other in the back line.
Yeah.
But then I would also ask the question, why did he decide to start Ibi over Tafari? And is that an indicator of what he thinks about Tafari, or does that mean Tafari is not playing or not in very good form right now? I mean, that's pretty concerning. I mean, this is also the same guy that really loves Martinez, and I'm not a big fan. So
I've been thinking about this question. By the way, I did ask last week about Nicosi, and he said Nicosi's taken a big step forward this winter. So I mean, I couldn't believe he didn't start. But I've been trying to think about why I sometimes have trouble with the way this coach picks players, and I think I've kind of come to a conclusion that because Coach Nico Estevez is European in his pedigree, he wants players that don't make mistakes. So he's thinking, I can get players. Seriously, he's thinking.
Well, he's got a problem because he had 10 of them out there that were just turning the ball over left and right.
Well, let me get through it. Right, that's the thing. It's like he's leaning towards these veteran, experienced players that he hopes are going to be mentally dialed in, understand the shape and the system, understand the tactic, and not make mental errors. He doesn't like kids, clearly, right, and inexperienced players. We can clearly see that by his choices. Not what he says, by his choices. I, on the other hand, know that in a grand picture of things, anyone in this league sucks. And okay, they don't suck. But what I'm saying is the chance of you having a flawless, mistake-free player in this league is very, very slim. Those guys cost immense amounts of money. So I would rather have a guy that has recovery pace and athleticism, that when he does make a mistake, because everyone in this game is going to make a mistake, he has the ability to recover from it. So like I would always pick Nicosi over a guy who's 31, 32, knowing that both players are going to make mistakes. Nicosi might be able to get over it. So I think that's the difference between the way I look at selection, he looks at selection. Granted, he's a professional coach and I'm not, but sometimes I struggle with why he's picking guys that I think are worse in terms of your chance to win the game.
Well, Dan, obviously, and we can talk about this later, a lot of what I was watching this weekend was more tied to the new technological experience of MLS Season Pass and thinking about those things and not really paying as close attention to the game. But I'm wondering if in the stadium, the team's inability to just simply connect passes and sustain any sort of attack was as obvious in person as it was on television.
Yeah, it certainly was. It was a little bit almost jarring when Nico has his press conference, and you've kind of heard the moans and groans all game, and the atmosphere's been completely flat because the performance has been flat. And he gets in and he says, "Yeah, it was a typical first game of the season, really." After losing the first home opener in 14 years. Yeah, I don't know. There was one team that was starting its season and one team that was halfway through preseason. Is the way it looked, in the way the way they connected.
Yeah, I was. Some of the things that I thought were most concerning, and one of the players I was most bothered by was Jesus. Well, the Jesus Ferreira. When balls finally got played to him, he'd misplay it or mistrap it, and he just didn't seem to be on his game. And I thought that was, I have a worry that this team's going to go as Mr. Ferreira goes this year, or Pareja goes this year. And so it wasn't a good start. But, here's the good news, guys. Hold on. I did a little research. I think if my numbers in my research are correct, Dallas has only lost their opening home game when they have the first game of the season at home 4 times in this club's history. And of 3 of those 4 times, in 2002, 2001, and in 97, they ended up 3rd in the Western Conference. And in fact, obviously 97 is the year they won the U.S. Open Cup, their first piece of trophy. It was their last time when they lost and the only time they had previously lost as an FC Dallas club at home in opening game, which was back in 2009. And they went 11-13-6 and did not make the playoffs. But that's only 1 out of 4 times. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's 2009 was the last time they lost a home opener. What was that, 13 straight? I think it was. So
yeah,
I mean, again, one game, not the end of the world,
but the 3 other times they lost, they made the playoffs and they were 3rd in the West. So we're fine, right? We got nothing to worry about.
One game's no big deal.
We'll reconvene after this weekend against LA.
Peter, 9 teams make the playoffs. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, after this last week, you're not worried that they may not be one of those 9?
Mark tape. No, I'm not. A big picture, I think, there's a couple of things, but I think overall, a lot of the talent is good enough. This team has consistently made the playoffs for years and years and years, with the bottom line is that the homegrown conveyor belt adds a level of talent that low budget teams, a lot of them don't take advantage of. Dallas drafts and they use homegrowns and they sign low budget players. They're not LAFC, but that extra piece that, like, for example, the Dynamo don't use is the difference between FC Dallas and the Dynamo is the homegrown paper.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So that's still true. They still have this base of talent that other budgetish teams don't have. So I'm sure it'll be fine. Knock on wood.
All right, so you had listed Paxton Pomacall as your man of the match, and that does feel like tallest kindergartner. But he did, as I said at the beginning, felt like he was maybe the only one, and Dan said Farfan maybe the other, that had a good match.
Yep.
Paxton did feel like there was a little bit something different to his game that we were missing last year.
Yeah, as Dan has pointed out multiple times, we're now 2 years on from the surgery. This is when we should get peak Paxton back. The thing I in particular liked is the thing that we have always said was slightly missing from Paxton's game, which is the final little piece of assist or shot. And so the fact that Paxton had like the most and best opportunities out of midfield. Now, he didn't convert, but those bursts forward, that acceleration forward, those moments of opportunity creation, when he has those is when he's at his best. And so seeing those back, it's been a long time since we've seen that stuff. And so that was a good step forward, in my opinion. Again, one game, but I liked what I saw from him beyond just his normal Energizer Bunny.
All right. Dan, anybody that you really were worried about other than Ibi and Tuamase? I think you also brought him up. Anybody else you want to discuss performance of the game?
Yeah, Jesus. But I was going to say, actually, I
Which
talked
one?
to Paxton, the only one whose name is Jesus.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Boom.
Fair enough. He got me.
Anyhow, Jesus
Switch
Ferrer was concerning, very concerning. What I was going to say is I did get a chance to speak to Paxton after the game about his performance and the fact that he was getting forward more. He'd spoken in the past about wanting to get on, take control of the game, get goals, get assists, and and he was getting forward. He was getting that final pass. He was getting in positions to shoot. Effectively, obviously we can put a good bit of that down to Sebastian Lletget being somewhat immobile due to knocks, but effectively, they said there really isn't much of a plan for them. They play pretty similarly, and it's just kind of a whoever's not picking up the mark makes the run. There's not a whole lot of communication. It's just kind of a trying to read the game. So maybe Paxton will be a little bit more selfish and get himself further up the field this year after, he had that great chance in the first half. It'd be great to see him be the player that we know he can be. But you mentioned concerns. Jesus did not have a touch in the box for the first hour of that game. I think he only had one or two by the end of it. His best contributions were the cross to Paxton early on, the corner that I can't think who it was put it over. Oh, it might have been Lletget. But his best contributions were out wide. I know he's playing that false nine role, but the false nine, the whole point is that the wingers come in over him and the nine, gets forward with or without the ball. And he's not doing that last part. If you look at his heat map in the last game, it reads the same as any 8. He spends most of his time within 15 yards of the centre circle. At some point, he was in the right back position. He was getting deeper and deeper, trying to search for balls and just not effective in the attack at all.
Yeah, this all feels a little bit like a blowback to the old Blas Perez days when Blas used to show up deep in their own half of the field, and you'd have a conversation.
Blas would get forward after the fact. He would make a run on the ball, and Jesus isn't doing that.
Yeah, no, completely fair. But isn't the cause of that fundamentally a player who's frustrated that when they are up in their proper position, they just are never given the ball. So while they're probably wrong for tracking back as much as they are, there is a larger problem at hand, which is that's an offense that just can't seem to get the 9 the ball in the right in the spot we all want him to get the ball.
I mean, he's got to get in that spot at some point, and he's just, he starts the game, drifts back, drifts wide.
I don't know. Maybe you have a better view of it in person than I do on television. I feel like I see Jesus up leading the line a lot of the times, and just nobody either chooses or can get him the ball. That's how I thought I saw. I mean, that was a big problem last year, and that's what I thought was a pretty big problem this year. This last week, which was they just kept turning the ball over as soon as they got to midfield.
Yeah, he comes hunting for it when he's not getting it. The part that bothered me the most was the sort of gesticulation and the yelling at teammates stuff, which is old Jesus, and like seeing that. And I asked Coach about that, and he acknowledged that. But he did say he had 2 really good conversations with Jesus this week, to sort of try and get him back on the same page and get back that mentality he had last year, where he was being, moving past things and not dwelling on things and being in the moment, being present. And I think there's probably pressure on Jesus to reproduce last year's numbers, whether it's real pressure or whether it's just he's perceiving that. I think that it has to be made clear to him that the success of this team is not based on whether Jesus scores 18 goals or not. What matters is winning. So if Jesus has less goals, but they win more games, that's fine. It's figuring out how to work in the team concept, which admittedly was a complete brownout against the Loons. So he has to understand that you cannot come back that far back hunting the ball. It's definitely a symptom of not getting enough passes into his feet in the right positions, for sure. So it's a team concept problem, and they'll need to work on it going forward. But Jesus can't make it worse by running away from the middle either.
Yeah.
And the big question will be, how will Jimenez affect all that as we move forward, and which is questions for other days perhaps, but definitely something we'll have to keep an eye on.
So we did get a little bit of a preview of that. We got that last few minutes with Mulatto playing as the second striker. And, Jesus, suddenly he starts leading the line. Suddenly he's staying high. He's not tracking back too much. That may be the move for him.
Yeah, I think we had a patron ask if I saw anything at training that said, what they might be thinking of long term with those 2 guys. And the training, no, but in the game, yes, that switch to that 2-striker system with Mulatto filling in for where Jimenez would be, I think is a direct, we're going to mix this in, 10, 15 minutes a game as we try and get Jimenez in here, because it might be the better option in the long run.
Who's the sacrifice if they make that tactical shift?
Well, that's complicated. It depends. There's so far, when I've talked to Coach about these various things, he's talked a lot about the added games this year, the added Leagues Cup and the added playoff games, meaning the loads going up for everybody. And they've made a conscious effort, it seems, and you can point to the Sam Junqua signing as an example of this, to overload in certain positions that are high workload positions because they feel like they have an extra load this year. So I don't think there's going to be a definitive answer on this is the way we play with these 11 guys. Some games it might be 2 guys, it might be 1, it might be the other. Jesus might be back. Maybe there's a double pivot look. And there's a bunch of different things that they're looking at. And from game to game to game, it might change, which takes smart players. But this coach likes smart players, so we'll see how they do.
Okay.
Hey guys, it's Johan Gomez. You may know me from my Chum Chat podcast or my FC Dallas youth career. I just want to take a moment to give a huge congratulations to Buzz and the whole Third Degree staff on their 200th podcast episode. It's been a long time coming. They've been giving us the best DTID content for a long time. I remember being in the academy and always reading what Third Degree had to say. I know they gave me a good analysis on my brother as well. So they've been doing this for a long time. Here's to 200 more, guys. Keep it up. Congrats.
Well, the other topic that I wanted to talk about was the whole issue about the 3 center midfielders, because you've got 3 positions that they play, and you've got in one of them you've got an issue of which of the 2 guys you have available are the right one to start, and in the other it's like you just don't have enough people to cover those 2 positions over the course of the season after they traded Servania. And Paxton you don't foresee that Paxton and Leggett both are going to play 90 minutes a game. Obviously, they pulled Paxton out early in this, and the only player they have left to fill that role is Ensebeling. And I love the effort, and I love the passion, but guys just not very good when you get within 30 yards of goal.
Are you asking, are they going to replace Brandon Servania?
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of the question about these three center parts. Is it? I guess I'm sorry. I'm rattling on.
Yeah.
The middle of the field for this team is a big problem.
Yeah. The short-term answer is they are not going to replace Brandon Servania. They have, between combinations of Jesus coming back and Jimenez going in, like they did last year a lot with Franco Jara. Velasco can come inside. Probably even Paul Arriola can come inside. I've seen Bernard Camungo play inside. They've got guys that can do that. Ima Tomasi used to do that a lot. I'm not saying that's the answer, but those guys are all possibilities. The other component of that answer is that they have a lot of people in this organization that they want to be progressing through. We saw Andre Costa a lot in spring training, who's a North Texas player. There's a kid from the U17 team whose name is Ali Uzura, who I've been talking about for a couple of years now. He was a little bit further down my list, but as the people have aged and he's improved, he's now very high on my homegrown list. He was in first team training again today. He's been in a lot of first team training. Coach says he's going to be in a whole lot of first team training because he's basically at the top of the next up kind of list for them now. And he's an 8. He's like Paxton. So
he's not a homegrown yet, though.
He's not homegrown yet. But, they have an organizational philosophy that they want to be able to bring in various people. And there's a list of about 5 or 6 of them with the use between the 17s and the 19s that they want to bring in from time to time. Ali Azura being the top one. But that doesn't help you in the game, of course. The game answer is what I said before about there's like 5 different people. And so for this coach, rather than a straight swap, if they need the guy out of there, it's these other kinds of swaps. It's a bringing in Bernie and moving Allen inside. It's bringing in Jimenez and bringing Jesus back. It's going with Facundo and Edwin both. And one of those guys being more of an 8 than a 6, more of a double pivot kind of look if Jesus dropping deep, for example. So he has multiple options. He doesn't seem concerned right now about the fact he's only got 3 8s. They never replaced Thomas Roberts for that matter either. This is the position I thought I would have been saying was Legette's backup that's missing, that they needed that rather than 3 guys that were like Paxton. So I think they're okay. I think the balance is all right for now. We'll see how it goes. It may be that they decide they need somebody eventually, and they have another window. There's like a month left in this window anyway, and then they got another summer window to do stuff too.
And I know you went to training earlier today. We're recording on Wednesday.
Yep.
Anything to report from there, sir?
Oh, yeah. A lot of the work today was on breaking down a block, as you would imagine. A lot of emphasis on pace of ball movement, a lot of pushing really quick drills, like move, okay, ball's in, let's go, like pushing those center backs and the 6 and the various combinations of moving the ball around the back with alacrity and getting a higher pace of play. I got to ask about the captain because a couple people had asked me about whether Nico picked or whether it was a vote, and it was a vote. So Nico asked the leadership council, which is a group of people, what they would like to do. They would like the coach to pick or they wanted the players to vote. They chose player vote, and Paul was elected by the players' captain. So good for Paul. Very cool. And Paxton and Jesus too as vice captains. That was all part of the vote. So the fun part for me was, of course, scouting both Sam Junqua and Jesus Jimenez for the first time. So let's talk about those 2 guys. Sam Junqua is a capable left back. He's not as good right this minute, of course, as Marco Farfan, but he was definitely up for that level of play. I think there would not be that big of a drop-off if he got in. He definitely looks like a guy to me right now, even capable of starting if you need him to. Is not dialed in with the team concepts yet, but that's to be expected. They only signed him like 5 days ago. So serviceable player, good player, defensive first, but can run the line. He did some of that, got some crosses in. So solid piece. I like that addition. Don't expect him to start a lot, but if you reduce Farfan's starts by 4 or 5 and drop his minutes by 500 or so, that's a win. That's fantastic. Now, Jesus Jimenez, I want to talk about because the last 2 international strikers I've seen come in are Cobra and Franco Jara. And my Cobra instant reaction was, holy crap, this dude's terrible. And he was terrible, and Dan will vouch for this in training. He was terrible for like 6 or 7 months, and Lucci never gave up on him, and he finally found a way to be of value. And then when I saw Franco Jara in training, my first thought was, holy shit, this guy's slower than dirt.
What was your Christian Coleman instant reaction? Do you remember that one?
Christian Coleman was one of those training guys that looked fabulous and amazing in training, and then couldn't do it in a game.
Right.
So he was, opposite of that. But this guy, right away, I felt quite good about. So let's talk about the kind of player he is. He is not a post-up Blas Perez, like back a center back down. He's not that. He's not a track star Jeff Cunningham run by people. He's also not slow. He's average pace, really good, runs a higher line than Jesus, good movement in and out of space, good reading of the game. He's been here for maybe about a week, I think. So he's already, making friends with the people that speak Spanish, of course. He's veteran, experienced. I liked the way he was anticipating play and moving through play, and saw some good finishing from him in a finishing drill too. So overall, my first impression is really, really good, which stands out from the two previous guys here that I thought were utter trash the first minute I saw him. Well, that's a little harsh to Franco O'Hara. He's fine. He's just really slow.
Just old.
Yeah, old and slow. So Jimenez stylistically plays very similar to Franco O'Hara, actually, except just not that dirt slow. Experienced, good, salty, good movement, good reading, good combination play. Exactly like Franco, except not that glacially slow. So I'm optimistic that he's going to be a good contribution. If he's going to come off the bench late in games, great. If he's going to start some games, great. I liked what I saw on the first viewing.
Except we have a problem.
Oh, yeah?
Well, he doesn't have a visa.
Oh,
he can't play.
Yet. Yeah, he doesn't have a visa yet. Yeah, his coach said in the conference call later, he said that his appointment is Monday in Toronto. So based on that, the coach saying that, he'll go up there. You guys know how it is. It's like 3 to 5 days or whatever, work days, and hopefully he'll get it. And then, so he won't be available this weekend, but he would, hopefully, cross your fingers, he'll be available the next game, which I think is Vancouver, oddly enough.
And yet Servania got to play for Toronto last week.
Well, let's just say that I would imagine, I'm not an immigration lawyer, but I imagine that it's very different getting a visa in Canada than it is in the United States.
Oh.
I bet you that it's not the same.
Well, I mean, do you think the partnership between the US and Canada, I don't think Brandon had to have any change to, like a straight-up visa the way that Jesus Jimenez does.
Yeah, I mean, Brandon's an American going to Canada, and Jimenez is a Spanish guy coming from Canada to the United States. It's different. It's not the same.
Okay, all right.
Hi, this is Thomas Roberts.
Yo, this is Bryan Reynolds. And this is Chris Richards.
We just want to congratulate Buzz and the Third Degree Podcast on y'all's 200th episode. And we just want to thank you for all the support towards us and FC Dallas over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, Buzz, I don't know why you did this. I don't know if you were trolling for episode 200 clicks or whatever you're doing, but you made me flip you the bird on the video tease of this podcast when you promised to answer the question.
Yeah.
Is Paxton a 6?
No. The question is it time to play Paxton as a 6?
No. The answer is no, Buzz. Can we just end it right there and leave and go back to normal programming, please?
Yeah, if you agree with Peter, you can turn it off right now. The question came from...
Oh, my God. If you tell me you think he should be playing at the 6, you and I are going to...
Well, the question came from a patron, and if you're a patron, you get to suggest topics, and if they're good, I'll either do a burn on them, or if it's a topic I think people would be interested in, we're going to do it on the podcast. In this case, we have people all the time, and the reason the patron asked for this was because they were listening to another podcast preview. I didn't ask which one, and I didn't listen to it. But the person on that podcast said they can't wait for Dallas to make this guy a 6. That's the answer to all their problems.
Oh, my God.
So I think it's worth discussing. I'm not saying I don't agree with you. I'm just saying it's worth discussing. So you said no. Dan, do you want to take a crack at it? You want me to go?
I can also say no.
No. Yeah. Okay. So
come on, Dan. Nut up. Be confident in your stance, please, sir.
Well,
yeah.
Hold the wall, Dan.
I can give a bigger answer. I mean, like, I think the way this team plays with a 6 currently, I'd rather just kind of, have 2 more defense-first fullbacks play a traditional midfield without a 6 and just know that Paxton is going to cover that ground still.
Yeah, this is the thing here. I'm going to say what Dan said, kind of. Paxton by himself in a vacuum, Peter, yes, 100%, not a 6. Paxton, there's a difference between a person who is willing to play defense, who presses, and who doesn't tackle but steals balls off of people. They call it a tackle, but it's not a tackle. Mm-hmm. He nips the ball off of people. He covers a lot of ground, and he's willing to do the dirty work. All those things are terrific. They're the reason why he's a great 8, box-to-box 8, in a vacuum. That's all true. There's a difference between being that guy and being an actual defensive 6, where you are tactically tied to the position in front of the center backs. You're working sideline to sideline. You're reading games and putting yourself in position to turn plays back. You're intercepting. Those two things are very different. Now, could Paxton be that guy? He could be. There's lots of cases where guys that were 8, and somebody pointed out Dax McCarty to me as an example of this, have become great 6s. It's definitely true. So the question becomes that in this particular system, given the fact that there's another striker here now, given the fact you're looking for alternative formations to maybe get that guy into the game, given the discussion of who's going to make way, Paxton is a 6, or Paxton in a double pivot where it's maybe 2, as Dan just said, 2 traditional 8s side by side like England used to do for a million years. Maybe it's not Paxton playing as a ball dogging, hard tackling 6, but maybe Paxton in a double deep 8 next to a 6, like a Paxton Edwin combo might be pretty good with a sort of pure 10 Jesus in front and then Jimenez above that, So I'm not going to say yes, the time is here to play Paxton as a 6, because I don't think that's true. I think the time is perhaps here to consider playing Paxton as a deep playmaker, and perhaps in a formation change, or late in games when you're chasing, to have 3 8s out there, basically take out a 6 and have Paxton be that deep guy behind Leggett and Siki or something, as an example. So it's not a straightforward answer that 100% Paxton can't be a 6. We don't want Paxton to be Facundo. That's what we don't want. But,
right, exactly.
Yeah.
There are a lot of players on this team that could, in theory, play a lot of different positions. They would just suck at it, right?
Yeah.
You could ask Edwin Cerrillo to play as an 8 or a 10. He could maybe try and do it, but he'd suck at it. Or maybe the better way of saying it is, what you're doing is you're taking that player out of their natural position where they can have the best chance of excelling and adding something to the team. And I have no doubt in my mind that Paxton could play as a 6 in all different various formations. But I also think, depending on what type of 6 you ask him to play and the formation you stick him in, I think you're stealing a guy at his age, right? Because part of that story is how old he is right now. Where is he in his career? What damage are you doing to his career if you take away from him the ask of doing the things that he's naturally really, really good at?
Yeah.
And here's the thing that's frustrating to me when people bring this up. We're only now getting to the point post-surgery where we're getting to see the old Paxton again, right?
Yeah.
I feel like it would be highway robbery to go, we really need to pull him back and make him more defensive because he's so good at chasing people down and stealing balls off of people. Because I just feel like we're so close to seeing the Paxton that we saw back at that what was it, the U17 World Cup or whatever, when he played against the World 20 when he was just balling out against France, I think it was, and we're so close to that again. I just think everybody yelling or making this claim that he'd be a better 6 is, one, people who really don't understand who he is as a player.
Yes.
And 2, really shorting themselves of what I think is ultimately the treat to come in Paxton Pomykal.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. I think there's a day, as his career moves from its prime, which is still like 5 years away.
Yes.
And it starts to come off the bottom end of that a little bit, and he's losing some of that explosiveness. Then there's a day where you can have a discussion of like Ted Eck or late stage Chad Deering, come back to a deeper position. You can be a 6 without crunching tackling. Chad Deering was a crunching tackler and Eck were crunching tacklers, but Oscar Pareja wasn't. And he played a lot of deep sort of 6 later in his career. You can look at guys like Baskets, who's the greatest 6 in the world, and he's not a crunching tackler either. So there is a day where Paxton may make this adaptation. I agree that it shouldn't be now. I do think there's a space for him to be in a double pivot as a deep playmaker next to a pure six. Then I think you may see that this year quite a bit. Late games are in different formations, but I agree with you. No, it's not time to make Paxton a pure six yet.
Yeah, and again, maybe some people that say he should be a six don't mean it as a singular six the way that Grayzo used to play this position, right?
Yeah, he's not.
And maybe so. I need to give people some leverage to make that claim without assuming that's the type of position they're in. The other problem with the idea of making a Paxton a six in this club is they don't have anybody else to replace him with. Who's playing that role, at least in this current formation?
Yeah, right now, no.
If you pull Paxton back to the Facundo Cerrillo position, who's taking his place? And if you tell me it's Ensebling, I'm going to laugh at you.
No, if you pulled him back next to Edwin, then you would only have one other guy high, and it would be more of a 10. So it could be Siki, but more likely it would be Leggett, it would be Jesus, it would be Velasco. It'd be more of a pure 10 type. Again, no one's a pure 10 anymore. You still have to play defense because you're going to press and all that stuff. But it would be a freer kind of high player in that shape. And then Siki wouldn't enter into the combo. Siki's going to be back and still be Paxton's backup in the deep spot. It would be a different kinds of guys that you're using at full swings. And there literally is like 5 or 6 guys that could be on the current roster alone that aren't eights. They're more of these, modern 10-ish kind of dudes that we have. Or 2 strikers, just not have a guy in there.
I'm interested to see what the Jimenez guys brings to the team, because there's a part of me that feels like there is a different and better tactical formation for this team that just needs to be, it's going to come at the expense of somebody, and I don't know who that is. I don't know if it's Facundo or Cerrillo or Areola. I don't know who it is, but somebody is going to have to come off the field to allow an actual goal scorer to go up top and bang goals in.
Don't be shocked if you see a Jesus for a combo up top with Paxton and somebody, maybe Edwin or whoever it could be, as double central mids like in the old school days. Now, Paul Ariel on the right works fine with that. Velasco always wants to come underneath, so maybe it's a lopsided shape. That happens a lot in modern football. So there's going to be some interesting. Look, this club now has more pieces that are capable of starting than I think it's ever had before. They've gone out and got real challengers in 5, not every spot, but 5 or 6 spots. So you're going to see different variations over the course of the season. It's not going to be, because in the past it was like we barely could figure out a whole 11. Sometimes it was a whole 5 and then you just plugged in whoever you had. Now it's like, not only do we have 11, we got 13, 14, 15, 16, and we got to figure out game to game who's going to play. Like for example, I had a conversation today about Facundo and Edwin as in the current shape, what guy does what. And a lot of it will come down to, obviously, if someone gets hot, that's different, but tactical matchups. Like, do you want a better presser? Do you want a guy who's going to cover side to side? Do you want a more tactical sit-in guy that's going to hold the shape better? So game to game, you're going to see a choice in that position based off of some of those tactics, which is a nice thing to have if you're a coach, is that ability to make those kinds of decisions.
Yeah. Daniel, Buzz and I prattled on quite a bit there. Would you like to interject any of your wise and sage observations?
No, I think you guys covered absolutely everything possible.
Oh, I just knew Peter was going to have a red hot Paxton was a 6 take.
Well,
came in guns blazing.
Well, no, I'll tell you a quick story about that. So back when I first found out about Paxton, it was because of Andy, right? It's Andy Swift, who had chaperoned him on an all-star team from the Dallas Cup to, I think it was Berlin. And it's the famous story about Paxton going on into becoming the MVP of the tournament and playing with the All-Stars and getting to be coached by Andy's hero Zico and the whole thing, right?
Yep.
And from there, you got to see. I started watching Paxton play, and I said the same thing to Andy. Many people have said here, which is, I wonder if Paxton wouldn't be better at 6. And I thought Andy was going to slap me, and that's when he was like, no, watch what Paxton is good at doing. He's good at ball progression. He's good at playmaking. He's good at all these other things. And this is what makes him so special, is that he's an American kid that can play this creative position, but he also is a box-to-box midfielder. And if you put him way back if you stuff him in the second half of the field, you're really removing what he's magic at, his real value. And so when I began to see it that way, that's what changed my opinion on it. And I just don't feel like I would be bummed out to feel like we're at the point where Paxton has to be the 6. I'm not saying he can't do it. I just don't think that's the right use of him.
Agreed.
The end. Thank you to coming to my TED Talk.
Yeah. Go, Dan.
I will say when you speak to him and say, "Hey, what do you think about playing 6?" He laughs. So.
Yeah. I've seen him do it. They've used to occasionally ask him to do it in the academy. You know, when they had Kappas and when they had Brian Padilla and they had Brandon and they had Jesus. There'd be times where Paxton would be playing as a 6. You know, where they wanted a lot of heavy passing from that spot. You know, now granted that's a very different level than the pro game, but you know, people have always wondered about that with him, and that's why I just thought it was worth this is a podcast, right? That's what we do. We talk about ideas and concepts, so I thought it was worth the discussion.
Yes. And I blather on.
Yeah.
Apologies.
It's all good.
It's a hot point.
Hey guys, Andy Swift here. Congratulations on your 200th episode. And Buzz, for you in particular, no one works harder than you do to cover our beloved team. So not only congrats, but also a big thank you for all you do.
Coming up next, how do they turn this thing around, Buzzard? How do they make this better? As they got the Galaxy coming up, who didn't get to play this weekend, and don't have Chicharito.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that Jesus Ferreira, Paul Arriola, and Alan Velasco will continue to start. I can't imagine that changing. Bernie hit a blast in practice today, though. I will give him that. O'Brien's back training, but he's coming off of a knock, so you wouldn't throw him right in there anyway, I wouldn't think. The Jet, they're trying to push. He played 45. They're trying to push him higher, so they'll want him to go more like 60. Paxton, of course, is Paxton. The question of Facundo versus Edwin will depend on how they think LA will line up. I'm guessing. I'm going to assume they'll stick with Facundo just to give him a couple of games at the start of the season because he apparently had a really, really good spring. I didn't see it in the game I watched. I thought he was horrible in the game I watched, but the right towards the end there, but coach seemed to think he had earned that spot, so I'll assume it's Facundo for now. Farfan's a no-brainer. Paz is a no-brainer. Martinez, Nolan Norris is balling out and is way ahead of schedule and is now 4th on the depth chart, but there's no way they start him over Martinez. Based on the last game, I would start Giovanni. I thought in that 20 minutes he looked electric. There's more I want to see there. I think he should be in. We'll see how coach feels about Tuamasi. The big question is Ibiaga versus Nkosi. I thought Ibiaga made multiple mistakes and looked nervous, looked uncomfortable. And based on how good I thought Nkosi had been this spring, I think Nkosi will start. Based on what I saw in training, I think he'll start. So that's what I am expecting is Nkosi with you flip a coin whether you like Tuamasi or Giovanni, but I would like to see Giovanni, frankly, based on what I saw in that short stint he did. So that's my group.
All right. Well, there's Saturday, 7:30. It is game number 2 of the season at the stadium. And since, Dan, as we said, you were the only one actually at the game between the three of us, why don't you now, my understanding, because I saw this play out over social media at the beginning of the game, was something occurred with fire and the sound system and everybody having to manually sing the national anthem. Could you please explain that story? Because that sounds very exciting.
Yeah, so the team was really bought in on the whole burn thing. The flamethrowers on top of the shield logo are firing higher than ever. They have 2 gigantic flamethrowers which were in green boxes that just looked like recycling bins, but with the ball, the ball from the current logo on the side. Well, these things were flamethrowers that were shooting like 30 feet in the air either side of the players' tunnel.
Right up by the fans?
Well, in front of the fans. They then put them on the field behind the goal, so I don't know if the plan was if Dallas scored that they would then go off there, kind of like how Seattle has them on the goal stanchions.
Oh, okay.
Obviously, we didn't get to see that. But supposedly, it was very intense. It was a lot higher than I thought that they would have anything going. Supposedly, they set off the fire alarms, which then, as the PA system is about to go into the national anthem, just kind of muted that automatically. So everyone's kind of standing around. The players are kind of going through a bit of a warm-up, confused why there's silence, and eventually we get to the support section just starts singing the national anthem.
Did the whole stadium eventually do it?
No.
Oh. Just the supporter section?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, you get some participation, but it's like anything. Everyone's kind of, dead to the world at that point.
Well, word around the campfire was that they actually did test that system. It didn't cause any problems, but game day is different, I suppose. And I'm pretty sure you will not be seeing those flamethrowers at that same location in this next game. They're going to be somewhere else, I understand. So,
as long as they keep them,
yeah, I think they're cool. But like, if you guys have ever been to a Mavericks or a Cowboys game, when they have that pyro, you can feel it way up in the stands. That stuff is hot. I was amazed when I saw them where they were. I thought, there's no way they're putting those right there, and they did. But
Well, now that you mentioned the green boxes, I saw them up against the wall, and I'm like, and there's no way they turned them on there. There's like people 3 feet away from that. So when you said they rolled them out, okay, that makes more sense. That is interesting. So I guess you're going to report back to me, Dan, that there are no lasers yet.
There are no lasers.
Stage look better, though. Every time it gets better.
Yeah, they did look good. It was interesting watching the She Believes Cup game because they actually had the trophy podium behind the goal, and the fireworks show from that was incredible. So it was good to see them add to the shield and the flamethrowers on top of that and the smoke machines and everything else. It looked like they've added more lights to it now. I don't recall the FC Dallas lettering being lit up last season.
Hi, everyone. It's Coach Dave Durr. Just want to wish Third Degree a happy 200th episode. My favorite pundits in all of Dallas. Actually, in all of the country. Happy anniversary, guys.
I just noticed this, and I have no idea if this is planned, but they announced the new announced sellout number for FC Dallas apparently is 19,096. It's 1996.
It has been for a
I
few
know.
years.
Why am I so dumb that I didn't recognize that it's 1996? That's fantastic.
Oh, I didn't even think until you pointed that out.
There's an extra zero in there, but that's so clever. I love it.
You think
I have no idea, but I love it. I'm gonna pretend like it's real
100%.
on purpose.
Okay. All right. Very good. Okay. So, anything else? The only other thing I think to talk about, unless Buzz, you got something else you want to chat about, is I'm interested in if either one of you had a chance to check out the new MLS season pass setup and any reports back or thoughts about it.
I watched the FC Dallas game on my computer. I thought it looked terrific. I've the difficulty there is in finding the replays is amazing. Peter, your image with the instructions on how to find it were very helpful to lots of people who have struggled. I can't believe how many times I've had to answer that damn question.
Do you know where I got that? Taylor Twellman tweeted it out because he was getting absolutely hammered about that.
The other thing I saw today, and I totally agree with this, is that apparently the league recap goals fest kind of recap show, I'm assuming it's 30 minutes or whatever, is behind the paywall. How dumb is that? Put your recap show out in front where the whole world can get it. I think that's dead on point. Whoever made that point, well, I thought they were money. So,
is it not on YouTube? Because that's where they used to.
This
put
is apparently the new. It's the new one for part of the MLS Pass. Is they have this recap kind of show. I didn't look on YouTube. I just saw that someone said it's behind the paywall. You can't watch it if you don't have it. So I thought, well, that's pretty dumb. Put it in front of the paywall so that people can come across it and check the league out. I mean, that's 101 league selling to me. I don't know. Admittedly, I did not look at YouTube. Maybe it's there. I just was seeing that people complain about it on Twitter. I thought, man, that's a good point. Put it out there.
Have you checked it out at all, Dan?
So I did watch the start of the Nashville game before I left for the stadium. That looked cool. You posted that picture of the whip around show where they were just kind of backs to the screen, backs to the camera, staring at two big screens. That looked weird as hell.
That was and apparently they stopped doing that later in the evening and they sat them in chairs, but I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, but in terms of the whip around 360 show, that was the most Well, there was two parts of that show that I thought were really, really weird. One was the director's decision to repeatedly give us a camera angle of the four hosts watching the wall videos or video walls.
Yeah,
like that didn't make any sense. Whether they're in a chair or they're standing, we don't need to see them watching the games. I thought that was weird. And the second one, and the one that completely threw me for a loop, was that they started taking commercial breaks during that show. So there are, at any minute, there's 6 games going on simultaneously that they're supposed to be whipping around. And at some point, they just went to commercial break and ran like 2 minutes of commercials. It was weird.
I do have one thing I didn't like. So, up in the press box, normally you kind of stick the replay on because you've got that minute delay. If something big happens, you can't catch it. You can catch it on the replay. With every provider, where it's ESPN or whatever, if you've got low bandwidth for whatever reason, it drops the quality.
Right.
Apple doesn't seem to have that. It just craps out entirely because FC Dallas doesn't have the best Wi-Fi. It just completely craps out and pauses the stream.
Well, I mean, unless something's changed dramatically since I was working on these things, Apple has variable bit rate in their player and in the stream. It's possible that at the stadium the bit rate is just the bandwidth is just too low that it gets so low that it just decides to blow out. You know what I'm saying? Instead of giving you a super pixelized picture.
Yeah, it was just interesting, after years of using, whether it be ESPN Plus or the boxcasting that they put on their website or, whatever other manners we've had of streaming games, Twitter being another one. That was the first time that it's just been, it grinds to a halt. And
that's interesting.
The internet wasn't terrible by any stretch of the imagination. It absolutely was for the She Believes Cup game. But, yeah, I hope that's not the norm.
Well, as with any video streaming, your mileage is going to vary based on the quality of the data of the bandwidth you have at home. And, in theory, as long as you've got somewhere around 75, 80 meg, you should be able to get a solid 1080p, full bitrate stream down from Apple for that. Now, depending on, at the device or who else is streaming stuff in your house at that particular time or traffic in your neighborhood or something that may impact it. So I don't know if maybe that was what was going on. So many people are on the Wi-Fi network at the stadium that it just couldn't deal with it. But I who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the media one, actually, the media one's been a bit funny lately. They have two, they have like I guess they've probably got a mesh network or something. And there's just been some, it'll switch you between the two. Yeah. So, I mean, it's possible that, it's also possible that with all the new stuff they're having to do, they're actually having to throw people extra devices onto that network too.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, yeah, I think the big takeaway from the weekend is, and I hope everybody got to notice just the superior quality of the production in terms of the video resolution. 1080p is instantly better than anything you see on your average NFL, NBA, baseball, or hockey broadcast. It is really, really good. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it was a bit funny before I went to the game. I was like, let me watch the previews that FC Dallas put out. It was funny watching that in, kind of like a 4K quality rather than, whatever they normally do through the website.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I really enjoyed Daniel Slayton, Mark Folwell's new partner. Apologies, of course, to our good friend Steve Davis, but I thought she was fantastic. I mean, obviously, there were some inexperienced working together between her and Mark, a little bit of stepping on each other from time to time. That will get ironed out with practice together, of course. But I thought she was just tremendously on point. I thought all of her comments were really, really good. I'm rarely am that impressed by somebody the first time I hear them. I don't know why I've never heard her before. Maybe it's because I don't watch other teams' broadcasts, but I thought she was fantastic. She knew all the Dallas players, knew her comments about them and what they were doing good and bad and what they ordinarily do well and poorly. All of it I thought was really good. I was really impressed with her. So credit to her. She was terrific.
That's funny because they put, for whatever reason, they switched from the clean feed that's going to the scoreboard in the press box and put it on the Apple feed. And for whatever reason had left the commentary on pretty loud. And I couldn't help but notice she really confused the whole situation when when Ibeaga plays that back pass badly and then makes that really great recovery. Because she's rattling on about the ref didn't point to his ear. He didn't go to VAR. He didn't go to VAR. Well, that's because play was stopped. He didn't have to stop play and give that signal.
Yeah, fair.
Like that's a basic that led to a Minnesota journalist asking for a pool question, because then he's watching it and not grasping that the ref did check, VR did
I'll
check
tell you a
it.
funny story about that Minnesota guy is he messaged me, and I'm like, dude, I'm camping. What are you messaging me for? He's like, Dan Crook's the pool guy. I'm not Dan Crook. Message Dan Crook. I'm not there.
Come on, Buzz. Everybody knows when you need stuff like that,
Yeah.
you're the man.
Dude,
to go
I'm not
to.
even in the building. What are you asking me?
Yeah, it just seemed like I didn't hear the whole the whole game, obviously, but I was like, that is such a mess up of a huge, crucial moment of a game that leads to this big misunderstanding of how the entire system works over video review.
Well, I missed that part. Other than that, I thought she was excellent.
Yeah, they're changing it up on Mark this weekend. He has somebody else different. He has a different woman with him this weekend, so it's not even the same crew. And I also say the other thing that's a little bit jarring is that it is the theory that these are supposed to be neutral crews, right?
Yes.
They're not home crews anymore. So trying to hear these people act in that way after years of being the home crew, I think is an interesting thing that's going to take some time. The other element that I have to give props to, for as little as I checked it out, but from all reports and kind of me skimming through the games and checking it out, I'll be damned if the syncing of the local radio doesn't actually by and large work. There were a couple of hits and misses there, but by and large it syncs pretty nicely. That must be some new thing that somebody invented since I was doing this in the last few years, because nobody could figure that out 3 or 4 years ago. So now they figured that out, and that worked pretty well. So that's a very nice feature for them to have.
Just use the tuning.
Yeah, it's the same tech, Peter, as like a dump out loop back on a radio. They just slide it.
An audio dump. Yeah. I'm just interested how I don't want to bog down in the technical part. I'm just interested in what they're doing back at the radio station and or audio, internet stream to mark all those things to make that work, how they're making that happen, and what the collaboration is between the truck, if it happens at the truck, and back at the
I'll try and find out. I assume it's happening in the truck. I will try and find out.
Yeah. That's I was really pleased to see it work, because I think it's a super kick-ass feature.
Apologies to, was it Owen and Steve? Apologies to them. I didn't try it. I went with the main broadcast because I was, sitting at my computer and didn't like.
Yeah, I should have asked Owen this the other day, and I haven't yet. I'm interested to see what happens with that, because Owen's a full-time employee of the Stars, and I believe, if I understand this correctly, he was given permission to miss a Stars event to do this, and I would anticipate there are going to be dates where Owen's not available to do FC Dallas because he has a Stars priority. So somebody's going to have to fill that role. Who it is, I don't know. Unless you guys.
John Arnold says he's doing some of them, so I don't know which position.
He's going to be the play-by-play guy?
He didn't say.
No, he's covering for Steve.
That would be my assumption, but you never know.
So Steve will do play-by-play?
Possible.
Potentially.
Yeah, Steve's done it before. Or Tyler, they got guys. Or
Tyler was pretty good.
Their social media guy Eddie
good.
has done that kind of work before. Maybe they'll slide him in there some.
Interesting. Yeah, there was lots of cool stuff. Buzz, you were spot on about the graphics package.
Good, right?
Like the little interstitial, the little wipes and stuff with the two teams, and it's got like the year the club was established kind of hidden in there nicely. Some of the animations are really cool. I like the guy hosting the studio stuff. I think he's really good. He drives the conversation. He doesn't let everybody get out of hand. I have no idea what's going on with that woman's pink outfit. She looks like she's dressed as a superhero. But overall, I was really impressed with the launch of MLS good. Season Pass. I think the one question that I'm dying to find out this weekend, because this is the first weekend where all the games aren't free, is how Apple and MLS decides to divvy up and show the the quote unquote 40% of games that are going to be available without an MLS season pass, and whether those are made available to everybody or to people who have an Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, does that
account.
start this week that we find out? Okay.
Yeah. But the problem is if you log into the Apple TV app and look at the schedule, all of the games are listed as season pass. But if you go to the MLS website, there are 14 games this weekend, one of which is the Fox game, right? So now after that, there's 5 games that are listed as Apple TV free. Okay. Now, if you go back to the original press release, there are 3 tiers that they talk about. There are all the games for anybody that has MLS season pass. Then there is going to be, quote, a selection of games made available to people who are Apple TV subscribers. And then there will be a number of games available on Apple TV for anybody. And that's where the discrepancy is as to how they're going to divvy that up and what they're going to make available and whatnot. Either way, this particular weekend, the Dallas-LA game is going to require an MLS season pass. It's not one of the free games.
If they end up putting 5 or 6 games a weekend free, that's pretty good. I mean, that's way more than I was expecting. So that'll be, I mean, we'll find out, right? But, that turns out to be true.
Again, though, what's free?
I know.
Is it free to people who have a subscription?
I know what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. I'm saying we'll find out, but hopefully that's what it is. Yeah.
Well, here's my next question. If you paid the 80 or 90 or whatever, however many bucks, and you found out that 40% of those games are going to be free without any kind of subscription, would you be pissed off about that?
No. Okay. Granted, I got mine free with my season ticket. So, the way I look at things like that is that I'm paying for that to watch my team. So, like, if there
That's
are
really
other
what
games that are free, it's like I barely even notice. I think there should be some free because I care about the league selling itself to casual fans to expand the audience. So yes, there should be some free ones. Would I be mad if it's 60% or 40%? No, I don't think I would. As long as I get to watch my team, I'm good.
Yeah,
and watch Oscar, of course, down in Orlando. Something.
Yep, for sure. Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on the progress of that and see what kind of changes they make. I do wonder if the season goes on, if there's ever a point where they offer a lesser expensive version that is just your team.
They should, I think. Yeah, I would. If it's me. Of course, it's easy for me to say I'm not a CEO of a company, but it's easy for me.
Yeah. And here's the other thing that really is the pro for MLS. Now they're not under any obligation to share viewership numbers in any way, shape, or form. There's no. I mean, I'm sure everybody's acutely aware of what the numbers are through their own analytics, but they don't have to share them.
That's true. I mean, they'll be eventually telling people at other leagues what they are because they're trying to want to get them. But
sure. Yeah, and Apple will do their Apple thing where they account anybody that got it free because they have a T-Mobile account. By the way, if you haven't heard this yet, if you have T-Mobile as a subscriber, T-Mobile has will give you a free MLS season pass account if you have T-Mobile as your cell provider.
Nice.
I don't know if everybody knows that or not, so that's free to them. And so they'll count those people as subscribers, people that were Apple TV, all are season ticket holders. So that'll be interesting to see what the number turns out to be if they ever announce one.
Okay.
All right. Well, we're just kind of dawdling on now. Anything else, Dan?
Nope.
Okay. Buzz?
Yes, I want to say thank you to the people that sent in some kind congratulations messages, and that would be Dan Hunt, Oscar Pareja, Coach Dave Deere, Jeff Cassar, Johan Gomez of Chum Chat, Andy Swift, Thomas Roberts, Bryan Reynolds, and Chris Richards. Thank you to all of those lovely people whose messages will be interspersed throughout this podcast when it goes live.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Third Degree, the podcast, has been brought to you by Soccer90.com. Shop Soccer90.com for all your FC Dallas, U.S. men's national team, European gear. Thanks to Soccer90 being with us for such a long time as a sponsor. You can get all your FC Dallas gear from them. You get 20% off with code Third Degree at checkout, Soccer90.com. Some exclusions apply.
Well, happy 200th episode to my good friends, Dan and Buzz.
Thanks, Peter, and thank you for being along on this voyage with us. Dan, thank you. It's been absolutely fantastic. Hopefully,
it's not coming to an end.
I know.
Buzz.
I'm just saying it's been. I was about to get to that. Hopefully, it's going to be fantastic as we go forward. But it's been 200 great episodes so far.
Yep, for sure.
Here's to another 200 then.
Thank you, FC Dallas Curious Fan. We will speak to you for episode 201 next week, hopefully with a win on Third Degree, the podcast.
Please win.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.